Hey guys, DJ here at Top Deck Cards Games, and today I'm doing a deck profile for the Abdul / Ebony Prophet deck for Force of Will. It plays Wind, Fire, and Dark type cards, so you can see our stones here. We have 4 Magic Stone of Blasting Waves, the Wind Fire Stone, 4 Magic Stone of Black Silence, the Dark Wind Stone, sorry. 1 Gru's Ballista, the Sealing Stone. This is the special stone for Abdul. It lets you flip Ebony Prophet for just 1 black if you have it in play, as well as having a lot of utility to kill some of the more aggressive creatures. And then 1 Magic Stone of Wind. We are a primarily wind-based deck. We also have 4 Grettles that we really don't want to miss on. You can fall pretty far behind if you're casting Gretel on turn 2 and miss. So instead of playing something like Feathsing to protect our roller, which could be a huge asset to this deck, we chose to just play a basic Windstone. Abdul is, or Ebony Prophet rather, is flipped for 1 mana if you have Gru's Blessed, like I said. 2 dark and a colorless if you don't, and he has the ability to tap himself to give a Resonator -3/-3. This again can be super relevant when you're grinding out against decks like Agrogram, where they might have a March Hare or a Tinkerbell when they don't have anything else on the board, or a Huntsman. So you can just tap and kill it, as well as against decks like Mono Red, where they're playing a lot of small creatures that you can just kill. When flipped, that's when Abdul gets real good. He becomes 1,000/1,000, stops your opponent's enter abilities, and then has the ability to twice per turn for 0 mana turn off an addition, Resonator. I think that's it. I always forget. Yeah, target Resonator addition loses all abilities until the end of turn. Knew it wasn't rulers, so I guess there's not really other card types it could hit. This is really relevant. 1, to shut off your opponent's abilities, especially obviously shutting off their enter effects is huge, and just different cards that you can turn off, like killing their Tinkerbells for 0 mana. But it's even bigger to turn off your own downsides. So you can turn off your Necronomicon's remove effect, you can turn off Mephistopheles, sacrifice a dude, and just a couple other little tricks between your cards, your opponent's cards. And he gives us a combo win finish that we'll talk about in a little bit when we get to the cards. So since we're playing mostly green, we have a bunch of mana creatures. I know a lot of my deck lists kind of look the same, but the green shell is just so good right now. So we have 4 Elvish Priest, 4 Gretel, and 4 Feathsing. Pretty standard. Most green decks have these cards. It's a shame that you're forced to play green right now, because if you want to play more than 2 colors, you basically have to play green to not lose to Split the Heaven and Earth. If you wanted to play 2 colors, you certainly wouldn't have to go as all in on green, but we kind of have to here, and the fast mana is just so good. It's really, really too good to pass up. Getting yourself out of early game and into the late game with a deck like this is just exactly where you want to be. Then we have 3 copies of Mephistopheles. I'm not actually sure if 3 is the correct number. I might shave this down to 2. I've really wanted to play a Blazer, but with only 4 red sources, it's a little bit sketchy. But right now we do have 3. He's the main win condition of our deck. With Abdul, you can stop him from making you sacrifice your other creatures, which is pretty strong, and it gives us a really good way of dealing with our opponent's rulers as a 15/15 target attack. Then our last creature is 3 Familiar of Holy Wind. I wouldn't mind playing 4 of him. The Familiar is just so good against aggressive decks. It comes into play, it draws a card, gets you deeper into your deck, and then you can spend a mana and get rid of it to kill one of their attackers early in the game. It's just so good for grinding. It puts you so far ahead, and really, when you start off with Familiar into like a Gretel or something against one of the aggressive decks, it becomes very hard for them to deal with everything you have. Going into our spells, we have 4 Flames of Outer Ward and 4 Thunders. Again, pretty standard in most decks this format. I really think that these are the best colors to play if you're not playing a hyper-aggressive deck, because you get the best hero removal, or ruler removal rather, with Flames and Thunder. You get the only mana ramp and the best counter spells with the green cards. And then you just have to play black to play Flames, or I probably wouldn't play black that often either. But Flames is just such a good card. It kills a lot of rulers on its own with an attack from a creature. For some of the bigger ones, you will have to have like Thunder Flames or Double Thunder. But it's really important to be able to deal with your opponent's rulers. Abdul does not shut them off. It will shut off enter abilities, but it doesn't shut off the ruler itself. So just a big ruler is one of the more difficult things for your deck to deal with. As we get through the deck, one of the things that really bothers me about this list that we could remedy by putting in something like Stoning Death or Carmillas or various other things is a real lack of hard creature removal. So your opponent's Mephistopheles can be kind of hard to deal with. That's another reason we have 3 of our own instead of playing some other win con, just to trade Mephs. But because of this, we do have 4 copies of Zeke's and 4 copies of Cake Zone, as well as 2 copies of Exceed as far as our counter magic goes. It is important to protect Abdul, so Cake Zone and Exceed really accomplish that. Exceed and Zeke's also let us counter things like Blazer and Meth that we don't really have many other good ways to deal with. For the most part, this deck seeks to deal with your opponent's threats through either countering them or just through Meth being one heck of a creature. Zeke's is a little bit misleading sometimes. It doesn't protect your ruler at all, so it doesn't seem like the best counterspell in this deck, but being able to hit any creature, stop any spell from killing her from targeting Mephistopheles, and even occasionally the pump effect to take a game by surprise. It's just all so relevant, it does so much. And to Exceed, I do almost wish I could play more of it, but, Cancel is not the most exciting card to play, but it gets the job done. There's not really space for more than 10 counterspells. Because the last 2 cards in our deck are basically our combo finish. We have 2 Law of Silence and 2 Necronomicon. You can play more copies of either of these cards because they both have plenty of utility outside of being win cons. But I like 2. I don't want to brick on too many copies of the Merle, especially Necro. Law of Silence has a lot of utility actually just the turn you flip Abdul. You can law your opponent so they can't deal with him right away and then take the game over while you have all of your mana. Necro, same thing. You can just play it to get all the value out of replaying counter spells, not running out of threads, dealing with your opponent's ruler through your burn spells, or even just removing their creatures. But the real big picture, big finish rather, with these cards is casting Law of Silence off Necronomicon, then responding by shutting off Necronomicon with Abdul. So now this card's going to go back to our graveyard instead of removed from play, so we can just keep casting it in our opponent's draw step every single turn, effectively not allowing our opponent to play any spells for the rest of the game. They will eventually find counter spells, but that's why we have 6 of our own to stop them from stopping us. And you don't really need many turns with your opponent not playing spells, especially if they're on a creature deck like Grim, before you're just going to take the game over. Some decks don't play counter magic, and against those decks, they have to draw enough instant speed burn to win the game. That's pretty unlikely. So once you've assembled that, you've probably got the game on lock, which is really cool. It's a really irritating way to lose the game, and not the most fun way to close the game out. But with so much protection for it, as well as just all the protection for a deck, Abdul is really the boogeyman right now if you're preparing for the regionals. I don't think Abdul is necessarily the best deck in the format, but it's just got so much going for it, so much power, that it is the deck you need to be prepared to beat and need to be prepared to play against the most. I've talked a lot about other decks that I think are good already, so I've already posted Grim lists and Scheherazade lists. I think those are the big things if you're preparing for regionals you should be prepared for. I think this is a pretty stock Abdul list, probably nothing too exciting here, but if you haven't seen the deck before, it's pretty important that you're familiar with it. So this is just a resource out there to familiarize yourself going into regionals and any other events you may have, just so you can get used to the deck. One change I wouldn't mind making is playing, like I said, some number of Stoning to Deaths or Carmillas, not very many. Maybe 1 Carmilla or 1 Stoning. 1 Stoning would be pretty easy to fit, just so we have another out to Meth once it's resolved. I'd rather not have to spend double Flames of Outer World on it, or exclusively trade my Meth for theirs. But other than that, there's not a lot of wiggle room in the deck either. Like, you can't cut much from the counters. You can cut Exceed if you wanted to. You can't cut mana guys, really. You can cut a Meth. You could cut a Flames. You really can't cut Exceed or Cake Zone. You can't cut Necro or Stories. So, like, there's about 3 flex spots in the deck. I wouldn't mind playing another copy of Familiar. I wouldn't mind playing another out to a Resolved Meth. It just depends on the meta, what you expect to play, and how you want to tune your deck. But there's not a ton of wiggle room. Maybe 4 spots at most. And I think that makes it very easy to prepare for Abdul and to metagame against Abdul. The lists aren't going to change much, so you know what you're getting into every time you sit down across from an Abdul player. They're going to be playing roughly the same deck, and, like I said, give or take a play set of cards. So it's a very easy strategy to familiarize yourself with and prepare for, because their techs won't be too overwhelming. So that's all there really is to this deck. The sideboards are pretty generic and average. There's not too much to say about it, so I'm not going to bother listing one here. If you guys are interested in different things you could side as an Abdul player for certain matchups, please let me know down below in the comments. I'd be more than happy to give my suggestions for how to answer a specific matchup. or if you're interested in tips for playing against Abdul, dealing with certain situations, or side cards for your deck against Abdul. Like I said, just post down below in the comments. I'm more than happy to keep an ongoing conversation with you guys to talk about different ways to improve your decks, improve my decks, and really just get the best grasp on Forceful that we can. So thanks for watching. I hope this is really useful for you guys who are going to regionals. Good luck to any of our viewers who are playing in the regional events. I hope you guys can qualify for Worlds. I hope I can qualify for Worlds, and we can really make this game succeed. So have a good one, guys. Thanks for watching. There will be another video probably next week and maybe some gameplay videos coming this week. I'm going to keep doing one deck a week, so I think that's a pretty good rate. There's not a ton of different really Tier 1 playable decks right now, so I think that'll get through the great ones pretty quickly. We're running out of great ones already, to be honest. There's plenty of Tier 2 decks, though. And then we can get into a lot of the more fun and casual decks after regionals are over, though. By then we'll have Vingolf and Millennia of Ages, so there's a lot of changes coming, actually. So we'll get through the Tier 1 decks before the new sets come out then, and then we'll start talking about new product, go over some of the new set cards, and really figure out how we're going to evolve the meta from there. Thanks for watching, guys.